Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Adinda Permata Annisa, and for today's occasions, I will present my teaching module entitled The Narrative Text for the Grade 12 Senior High School. And this module is designed based on the Curriculum Merdeka, using the deep learning approach combined with the GBA or genre-based approach. Besides explaining the lesson designs, I will also demonstrate how the learning media that I use are integrated into classroom activities. So this module focuses on reading and writing narrative text. And also, the lessons is last for the 19 minutes and follows the 4 stages of the GBA or genre-based approach, like building knowledge of the field, modeling of the text, and also the third one is joint construction of the text, and the last is independent construction of the text. So the deep learning approach in these lesson designs is encourages students to think critically and also reflect on the values and produce meaningful written work rather than simply memorizing text structures. Alright, so the next is the learning objectives. So the learning objectives of this lesson design is gradually move student from comprehension to the production. And first, students identify the narrative structures, then they answer comprehension questions, and after that, they collaboratively construct an alternative ending, and finally, they independently continue the story using their own ideas. Okay, so next one is the lesson follows the genre-based approach. There are 4 stages. Each stage gradually increases students' independence, and the teachers first activate prior knowledge, model of the text, and guides collaborative writing, and finally let students write independently. So the next one, before starting the main lesson, I begin with the building knowledge of the field stage or BKOF. So the purpose of this activity to activate student prior knowledge and connect their personal experiences with the topic of the narrative text. The first one, I grade the students and explain to these learning objectives, and the next, students participate in short reflective movement activity. In this activity, I read several statements such as I changed my mind about something recently. So students can take one step forward if the statement describes their experience. So from this simple activity, this can help students to become more engaged because they connect their lessons with their own lives or their own experiences before. After that, I ask several guiding questions about decisions, consequences, and emotions. So students can share their ideas and I can write some of their responses on the board. And finally, I connect their answers to today's narrative text and explain that they will read, analyze, and write story about choices and consequences. And the title of this narrative text today is A Green Step. So the next one, I will explain about the main learning media that I developed is an interactive Canva learning page. So I created this learning media by myself based on my own narrative text entitled Green Step. Instead of only reading a printed text, students interact with the story through several guided activities inside the Canva link or Canva website that I made by myself. So the next one, let me explain how the media are used in the modeling or during the modeling of this text stage, okay, or MOT. The first one, the teacher shares the Canva link with all students and each student can access the link using their own smartphones or their own gadgets. However, if some students don't have a smartphone or experience technical problems, the teachers can also prepare a printed version of the same narrative text. So this can ensure that every student can participate equally. After opening the link, students enter their full name before starting the activity. The next one, students read the narrative text Green Step individually on their phone. During the reading, students are asked to identify the generic structure of the narrative text. Instead of writing manually, they simply click different colors that have already been prepared inside the Canva link. For example, one color represents the orientation, another color represents the complication, and another color represents the oral solution, so they can highlight which part. Students can also only need to click the paragraph that they think belong to each part. This activity makes reading more interactive because students actively analyze the structure while reading instead of only reading passively. After finishing, students can click Next. Immediately, they receive the correct answers. They can compare their answers before with the correct structures, identify their mistakes, and understand why each paragraph belongs to the orientation and another. Also, this immediate feedback helps students to evaluate their own understanding without waiting for the teacher's explanations. After that, students continue to the reading comprehension quiz. So these are 5 comprehension questions related to the narrative text they have just read before. The question requires students to understand the story, identify the important information, and also to think about the character decisions. Another advantage is that the scores are generated automatically, so the teacher can monitor students' answers, computation studies, and scores directly through the Canvas sheets. Therefore, assessment becomes more efficient while students receive immediate feedback. So this is why it is suitable for the EFL learners, because this learning media is especially suitable for EFL learners. Many EFL students find it difficult to identify text structures and understand long reading passages. The color-coded activity raises students' cognitive load because they can focus on one task at a time. The immediate feedback also helps students to correct their misunderstanding independently. Instead of only listening to the teacher's explanations, students actively construct their own understanding through interaction with the text. Okay, the next one, after completing the reading activities, students move to the GCOD stage. So the teachers first divide class into pairs. Okay, then teachers shares another Canva link that I also created by myself, but only one student from each pair needs to open the link. They enter their group names before starting. In this activity, students complete a worksheet called Change the Resolution or Ending. They still use the same story, green step. So students already understand context and the characters of the story. Inside the worksheet, students are given 2 possible choices. The first option is Tamara stays and the second option is Tamara leaves. So students discuss both possibilities with their partner before choosing the ending. After selecting their decision, students are not asked to write a full paragraph immediately. Instead of that, they first complete a planning scaffold or scaffolding. The scaffolding asks students to write the decisions, what happened, Tamara's feelings, and the lesson learned. And also the last is the closing sentence. This scaffolding or this scaffold is very important, especially for the EFL learners. Many students know what they want to say, but struggle to organize their ideas in English. The scaffold helps students to organize their ideas step by step before writing. As a result, students become more confident, their writing is more organized, and they don't feel overwhelmed when producing a complete paragraph. After completing the outline, students develop it into complete alternative ending collaboratively. After they submit, when they submit their work, the teachers can immediately monitor every group's progress through the Canvas sheets. Okay, finally, students move to the independent construction of the text or ICOT. Unlike the previous activity, students now work individually. Teachers distribute a printed worksheet entitled One More Paragraph in Tamara Stories. So students continue using the same story, green step, because they are already familiar with the characters and events that happen in the story, right? So this allows students to focus on developing ideas instead of trying to understand new story. Before writing, students complete another planning box. They identify the event, the Tamara's feeling, and the lesson learned. So again, this planning box functions as an outline and also as a scaffolding, but not really easy like before. So for EFL learners, planning before writing is very important because it helps students to organize their ideas logically, maintain coherence throughout the paragraph, and also after that, students then write an 80 or maybe 100 word continuation beginning with the sentence 1 month later. At the end of the activity, students complete a self-checklist. They check whether they have used past tense, included their characters' feelings, and completed the story. So this self-assessment encourages students to reflect on their own writing before submitting it. Okay, finally we move to the pause activity, which take about 5 minutes. At this stage, students reflect on what they have learned throughout the lessons. Like first, students write a reflection about today's learning, they think about the story, the activity they completed, and the lesson they learned from story green step. This reflection encourages students to connect the story with their own experiences and help develop a deeper understanding, which is one of the main principles of the deep learning approach. The next one, students complete a simple exit ticket by answering 2 questions, like today I learned blah blah blah, and one thing I want to improve, like that. So the exit tickets allow students to evaluate their own learning and help teachers to identify which concepts have been understood and which areas may need further support in the next lessons. Finally, I summarize the main point of the lessons, including the narrative structure, the importance of making thoughtful decisions, and the values presented in the story. I also appreciate the student participation and ask them to submit their reflection before leaving the classroom. So through these final activities, students do not only finish lessons, but they also reflect on their learning process, making the learning experience more meaningful and memorable. Thank you so much, everyone. See you next time, and goodbye.